Good evening, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Beer Reading with Sean Connors. As you can see, the beer I have this week is Cobblestone Nitro Stout from Mill Street Breweries. Just giving my glass a quick cold water rinse as per normal. As you said before, instead of putting your glasses in the freezer, which is pretty much a no-go, a quick cold water rinse just before you pour it, cools the glass down, gets rid of any dust or whatever might be in the glass. There we go. So I'll pour it up, and then we'll read the can as per usual, and then we'll go from there. So as you've seen at the start, it's a stout, and it definitely pours like a stout. And specifically, this is what they call a nitro stout. We'll talk about that in a second. I'll give it a quick... It's your typical... People think of stout, they automatically think of Guinness. And this is actually the same style as stout, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it's got your typical aroma that you would expect from a Guinness-like stout. Kind of smoky almost. I like it. Alright, so basically reading from the can, Mill Street Brewery's Cobblestone Nitro Stout. It's organic, 4.2% alcohol, and it just quickly says our nitrogen-charged organic cobblestone stout is an exercise in smooth, with a deep roasted, smoky palate and a crisp, lingering hop note on the finish. This is a stout lover's stout. The classic pale ale is a gift from our breweries to you. And that's about it. And then they got the ingredients: water, organic malt, barley, organic flake wheat, organic roasted barley, organic hops, and brewer's yeast. So there you go. I've done a couple stouts to date, and honestly, the couple that I did, I wasn't a big fan of. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I do like a Guinness every now and then, but the few stouts that I've had so far, they were earlier episodes, they just weren't my cup of tea. I believe one was a chocolate milk stout, one was a wheat stout, and I don't believe there was a third or not, but the ones I had, I think the ratings were on average between 3.5, which is 3 is a good. However, I think the chocolate stout might have been below that, but even at my 3.5 that I gave it, afterwards, as I was drinking the stout, they didn't really go, they weren't my cup of tea, basically. And I think if I had to give a rating afterwards, after I finished it, it probably would have been a little bit lower. It was one of those beers, normally, you drink a beer, the more you drink, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it gets a little bit better. The few stouts that I had before, not at all. This one actually, as I said, it's the same style as Guinness, which is an Irish dry stout. And so far I'm liking this one. A lot better than the other ones I've had. Alright, so just to reiterate what we read on the can, it's Mill Street Breweries, which is a brewery out of Toronto, which started up in 2002. I believe it's a brewery, brew pub type of thing. They started in Toronto and they've expanded since then, and 2016, they opened one in St. John's, Newfoundland. I believe that was their 5th brew pub, and it was the first one outside of Ontario. And if I'm correct, I believe there's one in Calgary. I don't think they've expanded beyond Canadian borders. It's 4.2% alcohol, and that's average for a stout. As I said, it's nitro stout, and basically the nitrogen, what it is, it's most beers on carbon dioxide is added to the beer. This one, instead of carbon dioxide, it's nitrogen. Now, it might be a combination of nitrogen and carbon dioxide, I'm not sure, but it's definitely nitrogen added, which is the same as Guinness. And that basically gives it, makes it a little bit creamier. When you pour it, it just gives it a creamy feeling. Now, the aroma from the web page, if you go on the web page, it says kind of a roasted malt aroma, smoky, yeasty type of thing. And I'm definitely getting that. And the taste is roasted malt. They say a hint of walnut, which I'm not really getting. and a little bit of a chocolate finish. And chocolate coffee is common with stouts. And this one, I must say, I'm really enjoying it. That's all the information I can get on this one. As I said, they're in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is just outside my hometown. I'm in the suburb of St. John's, basically. And they make many different types of beers, and they do the regular beers, but they want to specialize in making small batch exclusive to the area where the pub is. So if you go to the Mill Street Brewery in St. John's, they're actually associated with the beer market. They share the same building. You're going to find beers there that are specific to the St. John's area, and you're not going to find them anywhere else. And most of the time, they're small batch, and I wouldn't say all the time, but I believe most of the time they're like a one-off type of thing. They'll make it just whatever the case might be. That will be specific to that area. Alright, so just talk about stouts in general. There's many different types of stouts. There's Irish Dry, which is the same as Guinness. There's oatmeal stouts, and this actually has a little bit of oatmeal in it as well. There's imperial stouts, which I believe were first brewed in England and transported to Russia for the Russia royalty up there. I mean, imperial stouts are normally a lot stronger. As I said, this is 4.2. A normal stout is between 4 and 6% alcohol. With imperial stouts are normally quite a bit higher. And also you have your sweet stouts, which are also known as your milk stout. And my understanding, they basically have a bit of lactose sugar into them. There's no actual milk as such. They're ales, or all ales. And the common thing with stouts are normally dark beers with roasted characters, and quite often coffee or chocolate. So if you're a coffee or chocolate person that you really like that stuff, by all means, if you're not used to stouts, try one. Stouts actually evolved from porters, so you could say porters are, if it wasn't for porters, stouts as we know would never come about. In the 1700s, the term stout was used for any version of beer that was high in alcohol and had what they said a bold flavor. So at the time, porters were your dark beers, and they were lighter in alcohol content. And that was probably 1800s. And at the time, they came out with a porter stout, which was basically a strong porter. And through the jigs and reels, basically, over time, that became more popular than porter itself. So nowadays, it became to the point where they just shortened it to just stout. But back in the 1700s, as I said, a stout could be any style of beer, but it was normally a bolder, higher alcohol. So you could have, I'm just on top of my head, you could have like a stout, a stout ale or a stout golden ale or type of thing. It was stout whatever, basically meant it was a strong version of that beer. And a stout porters kind of went to the wayside, and basically a port stouter became a stout. And as I said, they're normally kind of a heavier beer, so it's kind of a beer that, on a dark, dreary day, cuddle up to a stout, by all means, sitting around a fire. It's normally not a beer that you'll sit down in a pub and drink a shitload of them, unless of course you're in Ireland, where you're going to see them everywhere. For me, during my Navy days, I had a buddy of mine, Brio. He was a big Guinness person, and every time he'd have a Guinness, I'd take a little sip, and I just couldn't get past the strong flavor. And a lot of people, they don't get past that point. They'll taste the head and turn it right off. But we were in Portland, Oregon, for the Rose Festival, and anybody who's spent any time in the Navy, the Rose Festival is a big-ass party. So we went out pretty well every night, and then one night we were going out, and my buddy Brian basically said, Sean, he said, I'm paying for the beer tonight. I was like, perfect. But he said, the only thing I'm going to buy is Guinness. So I wasn't overly happy, but it was free beer, so I was going to take advantage of it. So I did. I spent the whole night drinking Guinness, and once I acquired the flavor, to this day, I still like a good Guinness, and this is pretty close to a Guinness. So that's it. I mean, if you've never had a stout before, that sounds kind of corny, but don't be afraid of the dark. Especially if you're a chocolate or a coffee lover, by all means, try one. Just don't take a sip. You actually got to get past the substantial head on a Guinness and get the flavor, and you'll be surprised how much you like it. So here you go, folks. That's the talk on the Mill Street Cobblestone Nitro Stout. I got to give it a rating. And I think I'm comfortable giving this one a 4.0, which is basically a very good beer. As you can see, I'm wasting no time getting it down, so I'm definitely enjoying it. I was contemplating between a 3.5 and a 4, but this is a extremely good stout. And this is actually a friend of mine, Jamie. He gave me this one several weeks ago. I've been holding on to it. And Jamie is one of these guys, every time you see him, he's trying a different type of beer. Like, Jamie loves trying different types of beers. I've been trying to get him down to do an episode with me, and it just hasn't worked out to date. But hopefully within the next couple of months we can get him down and see what he thinks. So thanks, Jamie, for giving me this beer. I'm really enjoying it. Mill Street Brewery, Cobblestone Nitro Stout 4.0. There you go. Last but not least, I got a new person subscribed to the Facebook page. It's George Noble. It's a friend of mine that I met through the internet. Never met in person. We have ex-military and we have some other similarities. So I just want to welcome George from Scotland. And I believe that's probably the furthest person on the Facebook group yet, farther away. I know he's not my first international, because I believe there's another couple of people that may be from outside Canada. So welcome to the group, George. I hope you go through a couple of episodes, and I hope you enjoy this one and the future episodes. So there you go, folks. I'm going to end it tonight with my rating 4.0 for my Nitro Stout from Mill Street Breweries. Until next beer, enjoy responsibly. Cheers.